Good morning, ladies. As usual, please silence cell phones before we begin. Thank you. We've had some amazing sunsets lately. Emily Dickinson wrote, and I quote, "Every January, sunset writes a poem about hope on the winter sky." Last week's program was a refreshing delight. The Rome Community Theater's presentation of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe tickled our fancy. Thank you, Deb Mislinski, for engaging these talented performers. We wish them well on their Maryland competition. Thank you also for the beautiful memorial display Kathy attached there. If you didn't see it, please take a look. It's gorgeous. I'd also like to thank some of our members who have already said they would be willing to fill a position. So I'm encouraging you again, please examine your conscience. If you think you can participate in helping us continue this well-oiled organization, we would appreciate your help. Thank you. Dutch is now going to read the minutes from last week.
Good morning, everybody. Last week I had mentioned to you about the little situation with my little first grader and my speakers or whatever, and it kind of reminded me of something else that had happened one time when I was teaching. I was teaching 5th and 6th grade language arts, and I had a 6th grade class, and I had this adorable. Okay. All right. I had this cute little 6th grade girl, but she was constantly interrupting me while I was teaching. So one day I had it up to here. I said, "Kristen," I said, when you see my name in the obituaries, I said, "You can come up and teach the class." She goes, "Mrs. Alvarez, you swore." I said, "I did? What did I say?" She said, "You said the B word." So I put the word obituary up on the board and I explained to her what it was. I still remember that to this day, and I ran into her a few years later, and she still remembered that little. Anyway, all right. Here are the minutes from last week, January 7th. President Joan Lomry called the meeting to order at 10:30 a.m. at the Beaches Manor. She reminded the membership that several positions will become available for the upcoming 26-28 year under the leadership of President Barbara Radke. For those interested, please notify one of the current officers. Whether it be continuing on a committee, joining a new committee, or being a program chair, all are necessary to continue with the organization's goals. President Lomry then thanked Director Twyla Edwards and the dedicated members of the choir for an amazing holiday concert. Luncheon committee members Carol Gondek, Marge Palmer, and Marianne Ruby were also thanked for arranging a delicious buffet. A special thanks was also given to Jackie Keyes for today's memorial display. Secretary Glenda Alvarez read the minutes from the December 17, 2026 meeting. With no additions or corrections, a motion to accept was made by Marge Palmer and seconded by Linda Slavin. Motion passed with all in favor. Treasurer Linda Berry reported the following for the period December 3rd, 2025 through January 7th, 2026. We started off with a balance on hand of $9,136.47. With total receipts of $3,344, brought total funds to $12,480.47. Total disbursements of $3,678.81, which left a balance on hand on January 7th of $8,801.66. Motion to accept the report was made by Nan Frimmer and seconded by Denise Giardino. Motion carried with all in favor. Membership Chair Sheila Waters reported that there are currently 3 approved new members and that she will be sending invitation letters shortly. She also mentioned that if anyone needs an application to sponsor a new member, to please contact her. Drama Chair W. Mislinski introduced today's speaker, Kirsten Flynn Walker, a 20-year member of the Rome Community Theater and associate professor at Utica University. Along with Director Pat and fellow actor Jennifer, The book The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis was brought to life in play format. The entertaining and creative performance transported the audience to the mythical land of Narnia. The wicked white queen ruled Narnia until her demise by Aslan, the powerful lion, with assistance by Lucy, Edmund, Susan, and Peter. Upon finishing the performance, the cast was given a standing ovation by the membership and also answered questions, especially in reference to the theater being closed due to mold and mildew. Work is currently being done, and hopefully it will reopen in late spring. Before the meeting ended, President Lomry thanked the actors for the delightful performance and reminded the members that an art program will be presented next week. Motion to adjourn at 11:30 a.m. was made by Nancy Horvath and seconded by Reggie Smith. Respectfully submitted, Glenn Alvarez.
Thank you, Dutch. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes as read? Debbie Mislinski. Can I have a second to the motion? Linda Berry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, before our presentation, I just want you to remember that there are items available for sale. However, the items that are on the window ledge are mine, and you can't buy those. Thank you. The past is like a glass blower's furnace. It can either shape you into something extraordinary or burn you to ashes. This is a quote from a historical novel about Venice and Murano called The Glass Blower of Murano, which was written by Marina Fiorano. Roseanne is going to introduce our presentation speaker today. Roseanne?
Thank you. Penelope Rakov Lee was born in Kingston, New York. However, she did grow up in Syracuse, but as a young adult, she lived... I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? Yes. Is it better? Okay. Penelope was born in Kingston, New York, but she grew up in Syracuse. As a young adult, though, she lived all over the country, including Newcastle, Maine, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Oregon. She moved back home, as many do, to care for her family. Penny has degrees from Alfred University and the Tyler School of Art, where she developed her love of glass layering, originally based on the Murano tradition known as Murine. She's well known for her innovative techniques that create intricate patterns, as well as for the jewelry and sculptures she makes with them. I know she has so much to share, and you can see some gorgeous jewelry that she's made, and not just jewelry, dishware. It's just beautiful. I know she'd like to share this with you. I'm excited and pleased to introduce Penelope Rakov Lee.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a giant honor. It's wonderful that so many people showed up and are interested in my work. I'd like to open my slideshow with some of my favorite parts of the process. I'm going to talk a lot about sort of where my influences came from and what the timeline is of how I developed my career, but I'd like to start with my favorite part. It's just a nice opener. For those of you who've seen glass blowing before, you might recognize the pipe in the photo on the left side. I think that's the right side for you. That is color layering. So I have one color that's on the pipe, and then I have an assistant who drops another color on top, and that's what allows me to have different layers of color. I can do as many layers as I want to, and there's a few different techniques as the piece gets larger and larger, but getting a nice smooth finish of color is just very satisfying. And then the other part of the process that I enjoy so much is the bottom on the far side from me, cracking open a new pattern and looking at it and discovering how those pieces are going to work together and maybe even creating a new pattern from them. I'll usually pull one very long bar and then slice that into about 5-inch lengths. And then I look at all the 5-inch lengths together and decide if I'm going to group them back together, stretch them out again, or if I'm going to slice them up and make something finished from them. And then the top right is kind of where I'm going. You guys will see some of the dishes that I have out there. I've been making a lot more of those than the jewelry. Jewelry has been wonderful for me and I really enjoyed it. But lately I've just been creating more of those. So, influence. This is my grandmother and my mother. So I grew up in central New York in the Syracuse area, specifically Fayetteville. We're local, you guys might know where that is. And my family was very encouraging of just doing anything interesting with your life. It wasn't so much to have a specific type of career or even to make a certain amount of money. It was you were to contribute to the world, to do something that hasn't been done before. My mother is, she has dementia now, and my grandmother has since passed, which is why I'm a little shaky. I'll get past to this part. But they were huge influences, very supportive of any weird things that I wanted to do with my life. My mother was a financial advisor, by the way. And it's my paternal grandmother. I just like to note that because they are not related to each other. I started my career in ceramics. I went to Alfred University, which is a wonderful state school that is a world-known ceramics program. If you go anywhere in the world in ceramics, they know of Alfred University. It has amazing facilities, amazing professors, and I discovered through ceramics a lot of what I still work with today, which is that I love making things that interact with the body. I like to make things that have a certain weight that you're attracted to, that you want to pick up, that you want to hold. And function is a nice way to have an object in your home that doesn't demand attention, but you can feel pleasure in interacting with. So I really enjoyed ceramics. I also enjoyed the process. I like a lengthy process to make something. I don't like anything quick. I think with a lengthy process, you're allowed to edit a lot, and there's a lot of editing that needs to be done along the way. A lot of parts of the process that, in everything that I do, that I'm like, oh, I can discard that. I then went on to graduate school at Tyler School of Art, which is part of Temple University in Philadelphia. And I switched materials. I did study glass when I went to Alfred University, but the ceramics there is just so immersive that I was able to develop better my undergrad in ceramics, but then was really interested in the color layering that you can do in glass. The ceramics I felt limited in layers of glazes because they would just all melt together. I wanted to be able to create that depth and see how those patterns could work. I still was interested in the handheld, which at the time was not very popular. So I went to graduate school in the early 2000s, and a lot of what was popular for artists and what was encouraged was installation art, these large spaces that would engulf you, and also really in glass blowing, the impressive large demonstrations. I just physically am not that person and just wasn't as interested in making that work. So I found some resistance in my education and kind of went the other way. So I made a lot of very tiny things. I called them pocket art. I wanted people to interact with one piece of work and nobody else could at the same time have the same experience that they were having. And so these are some of my pocket art kind of examples. And I did try to incorporate my ceramics in my glass, so I made some kind of petri dishes and wanted to play with cellular structures and how things break apart and are put back together. So the dish is ceramic, and the little grouping of cells that was glass, and they're all different pieces that are fused together. I was learning how to pull Cane and Marini. At this point, it looks like it's magic. I can do it without even really looking at it, but learning it took a long time. It took me about 10 years to pull a nice, even cane and be able to manipulate it the way that I wanted to. So that's where a lot of the editing came in. I was able to make these small petri dishes because I could use the parts that I liked and discard parts that I did not like. And so I was able to kind of play with that a little bit. I was encouraged in school to not just hand make everything, to maybe try to incorporate some outside materials. I did. It's cool, but it wasn't where I continued to go. So I started making pieces that had something to do with the pedestal because it was, like I said, at the time, very discouraged to make pedestal artwork. It was, they wanted us to do more installations, and I really felt strongly that sometimes an object needs to pull you in and you ignore the rest of the world because that object is so interesting to you. And this is based on a toy that I played with a lot as a kid from Spencer Gifts, where you would press your hands in and make. So this is actually very loosely tied together cane, all color, and you can move it, you can mess with it. And one of the more fun things for me to do with this series of sculptures was come into the gallery after people had been there when I wasn't there and see the evidence of them touching the work, and even kind of retracting, being a little nervous because they didn't expect it to actually take on their impression. So this is the face of it. And this is all just people touching it. When I'd set it up, I would come in and I would set it up and I would make it flat and then see how it changed throughout the days. And I also really was interested in the way that light affects the color in glass, how different colors, the density of them, one light would pass through a thinner kind of color and would bounce off another that had a more dense kind of structure. So this piece is upside down, it's topographical, so it can sort of looks like it's suspended. And when you look underneath it, you have this kind of lacy pattern. It was very, very delicate. So that's the topographical that you can see underneath. This is another one of those pedestal pieces, and this one got messed with so much. It was little tiny, like grains of glass, and it would have these pathways of people touching it. And it doesn't, color-wise, it doesn't reference it, but I love when I drive by farmland and I see those big plastic wrapped bales of hay, and they're always different patterns. If you ever look at different farmland, the farmers will organize them in different patterns, and I just think it's fascinating. I've done some driving across the country, and I've never seen a farm that organized their structures the same way. So, but I wanted it right. When I finished graduate school, I needed to do something a little bit more practical to try to pay the rent. And so this is a studio that I worked in. It's East Falls Glassworks. And I taught classes, and I made my own work, and I started a production line of jewelry. And this is just what an average day looks like. You can see me hunched over, rolling some color on what we call marver. And this is the stretching of the cane, and I start out, my assistant will hand me a colder pipe, and we attach the two ends of the glass together, and I'll start the stretch, and then pass the pipe back off to my assistant. So one of the things that attracts me to glass and keeps me engaged with it is the community. I have a lot of friends all over the world, and when we are able to get together and work together, everybody's work changes and grows and is really amazing. I've had some assistants that have worked for me for a while, and they've gone on and done amazing things. So the community in the glass world is really a huge draw. This was a school that I worked in at Salem, and this is the end of the pole. This is after you've gotten that nice stretch. Salem Community College, it's the only school in the country where you can study scientific glass blowing. That's making the beakers and all those things that make distilled. So it was the only place that I've ever been where working in the hot glass studio, the big molten pot of glass, was less interesting. All the kids wanted to learn how to make the beakers. So it was kind of fun. And I had a lot of years where I traveled and did craft shows, and this is my sign. And I loved it. It was really fun. It was a great way to travel, especially when you're younger and you just, your finances are kind of, you don't go on vacation a lot, but I was able to meet a lot of different people and receive feedback. That's one of the hardest things for an artist to get is feedback for their work, because everybody will always tell you they love it and it's nice. But when people buy it, they really love it. So you learn what works and what people are gravitating towards, what colors really are interesting to people. You have to kind of glean a little bit, but the psychology of the craft show was great. And it also allowed me to pull lots of different kinds of colors and experiment with what the creative process that I really enjoyed, and selling the jewelry funded that. So it was a really nice marriage of being able to live as an artist, which my family encouraged me to be an artist, but they didn't know how I would do it. There wasn't anybody who said, oh, this is the pathway. And even now, I have a creative child, and things are different. I mean, they will have to use the internet and put out videos and do things like that. I didn't have to do that. I traveled and did shows. But so the rings are a lot of examples of little tiny versions of patterns that I explored for a long time. And I'm gonna sort of go through some of the product shots a little bit faster, just so you can kind of get an idea of the volume. I did work mostly in silver. I have some gold pieces, and a lot of that was my mother. My mother wanted me to have real jewelry, so I made some real jewelry. And not very much. It's expensive to make, and it was harder to gauge what colors people really wanted in gold, because that's a lot of times you want gemstones and other things to accompany that. I love earrings because they show the light and they show the pattern. Earrings and rings are my favorite objects to both wear and make. I feel like rings are for the person who's wearing them. They're your entertainment. They're something for you to look at. And earrings really brighten up the face and interact a lot with the person's movements. So I had a lot of fun developing different styles of that. I think Joan's wearing the ones on the, or a version of them. And getting them to be light enough also was really tricky. Sometimes when I tell people I make glass jewelry, if they don't have an image, they picture that like kind of thick dichroic jewelry, which I think is lovely and has its place, but I really worked on getting glass as thin and light as I could and still have it be structural, which also meant that I had some repairs to do sometimes after people would buy a piece, and it didn't hold up through hard usage. But worked out a lot of what we call cold working. So there's hot working, which is the molten glass layering, and then another part of the process that's a lot less glamorous but very important is grinding and polishing and taking layers off the glass surface and making the form be exactly what you want. Sometimes the melting part of the process, you get some texture that maybe interrupts the pattern. And I like to have a bit of a dulled surface so that the light refraction on the surface doesn't impede the pattern. I did work with some groupings of patterns and made some larger necklaces as well. Again, like making one big pendant sometimes was difficult for weight, so I was trying to redistribute. I didn't go to school for jewelry. I went to school for ceramics and for glass. And so making the actual jewelry became a bit of a challenge. I worked with a local jewelry artist, and she and I would come up with designs together. So I would tell her how I wanted things to look. She would tell me what was possible. I would say, please do this thing anyway, even if it doesn't work, so I can learn from it. And we would mock up a lot of kind of trial and error jewelry, which was really fun, and we both enjoyed that for a long time, about 10 years that we worked together. So I was able to kind of come up with designs that weren't really traditional because I didn't have the same background that she did, but I still was able to get the techniques. Yes?
We're hearing a lot of music over here. Could everybody check their phones again and make sure it's not on playing the radio? Is it the speaker? I keep thinking it's a speaker, but then I can't tell exactly where it's coming from. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. No, it's
And
not.
your presentation is wonderful, but this music is...
Thank you. I'm just hearing if it stopped. Did it stop? Okay.
Yeah.
No. So as I said, the rings were one of my favorite things to make because I like to wear them. It's sort of like wearing a worry stone. I can kind of fidget with it. The other thing that I liked about the cocktail rings especially was that was a special part of the process. When I'm pulling the glass, there's a little nub at the bottom that I grab and pull from, so I have the leverage. And that part was kind of a special little marble. It changed the pattern in a different way. So I made a lot of my cocktail rings from that part, and I was able to sort of reveal and polish and find what the special part of that pattern was. The trick was light. So the holes that are drilled in the back of some of the rings or the open back is so that I can get light through so you can really see the color. Because glass will definitely darken. I have a bowl over there that looks black. It's a little bowl, and if you hold it up to the light, it's thousands of threads of teal, but you can't tell when it's down like this. So at home, I have a light that shines through it so that I can see the pattern better. But that's what the holes are for the back of the ring. John, are you wearing that red one or one similar?
It's in the box.
Okay, all right. Joan was one of my biggest supporters in Philadelphia. She and her daughter would come to my studio. Her daughter actually found me independently. She found me at a craft show, and I hope you don't mind my... No. Her daughter found me at a craft show, and then she brought her mother to my studio, and through talking, we discovered that we actually had people in common. So Joan's sister is my mother's best friends. But totally independent. It's a little wacky. But, through the craft shows, I met a woman who invited me to work for her company designing cufflinks. So I worked for a while as a cufflink designer, and I pulled the glass for those, and those got distributed to stores, and I realized that was a pretty nice way to more easly make a living. So I started selling to stores maybe 2013 or so, and that was a lot of different kinds of shows that were wholesale. And I don't know if anyone has any experience with wholesale shows. They're set up very much like retail shows, but the people who are shopping come in and buy for the stores. They look at the whole collection of your jewelry, and they'll choose, I want this pair of earrings and that ring, and then you make that for their store, send it when they want it, and they keep your price points very consistent, which was good for me, because I am not a good business person. That part of my mother did not translate. So it was difficult for me to make a living selling work because I liked all of the people who would buy my work, and I wanted to give them a deal. But it was much better to sell to stores, even though I missed out on some of the connection opportunities. Yeah, black and whites were fun too, because that really highlighted different patterns. I'm going to talk a little bit about my influences here. Dick Marquis is one of the American masters. He brought over a lot of the Murano techniques in the 60s. He's one of the godfathers of the American glass movement, and he is wildly funny. He's a really interesting man. He lives out in Seattle on Woodbury Island with his wife. And I always admired him. He was the kind of artist that I thought I would never be in the same room with, let alone develop any kind of friendship with. And this is some of his work. He's known for his teapots. He also studied ceramics when he was in college and then wanted to be able to make those in glass, and it's a very difficult form to be able to make in both materials. And he's fairly irreverent and he's really funny. So, but he also works with Marini a lot. And I was given the opportunity to take a workshop with him, which was a dream come true. I couldn't even speak to him for a week. I was so nervous. He's the gentleman that's closest to me here. And we just got along. After about a week, we finally started talking. He'd see me like cleaning up his Marini and organizing things, and thought, okay, we're simpatico. So he's invited me to be his teaching assistant for classes at Hilltop and Haystack and places like that. And that was a real door opener for me. So what I tell young people is, if you want a career in the arts, just show up. Just be in the places where things are happening, and it will happen. You don't have to cater to your work. You don't have to change a thing. Just show up, be around the artists, and it will happen. So this was a magical experience for me. It was the whole class together, and I got to know people from all over America at that point, and then the places that Dick invited me from that point brought me more places in the world. This is a shot of us working together for proof. And this is his work that's behind me. I just think it's a really funny shot because my bun is like central, and then his work is sort of fuzzy behind it. It's just a picture I like. And then also another large influence for me is Kate Rhodes. She's also based in Seattle. She was a graduate student when I was an undergrad, and when I was an undergrad, the glass world was very dominantly male, and like male in a super male way. Like, you know, very loud, very big, everything was pushy and hard, and I would wear my cardigan into the studio, and I like J. Crew, and I was like just not, I didn't fit in. And Kate was a powerhouse woman, and she just, I mean, she was pretty tough, but she allowed there to be space for me. She carved out a little space for me. And because of her, I've also done for other younger women. And the glass world now is very, very female. There's lots of female artists. And I really feel like a lot of it had to do with Kate's influence. She also obviously worked with Marini and pattern and layering, and she does weavings with her open Marini. She's a fascinating artist. And I was given the chance to go out and assist her for one of her workshops, so then we went inside it on the island. And this is Dale Chihuly's studio. We went and toured there and got to meet all the glass blowers there, and now we're all friends. It's a very small world. You basically, like I said, just show up. And then this gentleman is Simon Eccles. He's a lesser-known artist, but he's big in England, and he's also sort of from the Dick Marquis camp. And I met him at a workshop for Dick, and he invited me to come to England and teach a workshop there. And I love his work. It's also super playful. The part of the process you're seeing him do there is pulling the Marini, and that's also when I get a fatter, more concentrated pattern, that's also what it looks like. And so he invited me to teach a workshop at, they have a biennale every other year where they invite 10 artists to teach workshops, and they also have a large show of all the glass work that's being done in the UK at the time. It's now a little bit more opened up. That was a few years ago, and now they're starting to incorporate more US. But you know, they're proprietary. They want to make sure that they're highlighting their artists as well. So that was an amazing opportunity. Giles Bettison is another influence of mine. I mean, you can see it's amazing what he can do. He's Australian. He studies fabric. So a lot of these he does some lace work. It's the piece that's closest to me is based on African patterning, and I mean, seriously, look him up, amazing, and such a nice person. And I took a few workshops with him in different ways. Sometimes you take a workshop as a student, sometimes you assist, you apply to assist the workshop, and that gives you a different kind of relationship with the artist. And sometimes you teach the workshop yourself. And I had the opportunity to do all 3 of those things, and I would do all of them again. I still take classes sometimes. I work out of Corning now. I go there and I will do a day of my own work and then come back home, and I have some facilities at home that I work on, like grinding and polishing the glass or setting patterns, and then I'll go back to Corning for more finishing, or I travel and I'll do a longer workshop, which gives me access to their facilities also. And then another artist in influence, and I'm almost done with this, Dan Friday. You may recognize him if you've watched Blown Away, which it's a great reality series. I like the later parts of the first series, or the first collection of episodes. I don't think is a good example of what the glass community is like. When they get more friendly with each other, that's more what it's like. So Dan's a hilarious person. He's also from Seattle. He worked for Dale Chihuly for a long time. He's now got a very successful career of his own. He's a Native American and makes a lot of work that is based on what's going on with his community and objects that are relics. And for him, glass is this permanent thing. And one of the things that attracts me to glass is that it can be anything. It can be so thin, it can bend, you can cook with it, it can be totally transparent, it can be completely opaque, you could build with it, it can be solid. I mean, you really can make anything if you know what to do. So the variety of the kinds of art that you can see in glass, I think, is unparalleled. And I also feel like we still have a lot more exploration to do. It's not an art form that's dead. We're still exploring a lot of it. Up until the 1960s, most glass work was made in a factory. You'd have a designer and you'd have the executors, and they were not the same people. And around the 1960s, the Americans took some of the ideas from what those larger factories were, and they started incorporating those into smaller studios where they would play. So you'll see a lot of art from the 60s, 70s, and 80s that's a little bit more messy, because they were still working it out. The Italians did not want to teach us. They wanted to keep that there. So some of the artists that came over here from Italy were not allowed back for a long time. Lino Tagliapietrietta, he's really the one who brought over a ton of techniques, but also Dick Marquis. The 2 of them are huge in sort of bringing glass around the world. Lost my place, I kind of went on the page there. But again, just sort of exemplifying the glass community. This is the most fun thing, is being in the shop with your friends, making stuff that you like to make, and then the fact that you can make it happen by having objects that people want is wonderful. And then another person that was on Blown Away is Kat Burns. She was my assistant for a long time. This is when she was my student at Salem. I'm very proud of her. She's been really successful. She also makes a lot of Marini. I don't know where she learned it. But, and this was at a class that I taught at Pilchuck. She came an assistant for the class. This is a woman that I worked for a while. This is Kelly. Hold on, I have it in notes, but I digress. Kelly has a wonderful studio out in Oregon. And I had been in Philadelphia for a long time, and I'd sort of been all the places in Philadelphia that I could be, and I really needed to expand and go some other places. And Kelly invited me out to her studio to work for a summer, doing make your own, still teaching. I did a lot of teaching of beginners. If somebody wants to learn how to make glass, there are lots of opportunities. Locally, the best place, I think, really is Corning. There's a lot of make-your-owns. You can go and try it, see if you like it. If you like it, you can take longer classes. I teach weekend workshops there twice a year, specifically in the thing that I do, but they have more sort of general classes as well. So Kelly was pivotal for me to kind of get out of Philadelphia, stretch my wings a little bit, and then my grandma turned 100. And she's the sweetest person that I think ever was. But she turned 100, she's still living in her home. And yeah, by herself. My father had passed a long time ago. My mother was kind of taking care of her. And then my mother started showing signs of her dementia. And really, it wasn't appropriate that she was taking care of grandma. And since I was in a transient part of my life anyway, and I could kind of pick up and move and do some things, I'd gotten out of a relationship and I was looking for my next place. I thought, okay, I'll come home for a little while, make sure that Grandma is settled, take care of her while she needs me, and see what's going on with Mom, because we really didn't understand that she had dementia yet. We just knew that she was off. Something was funky. So that wound up being 6 years. My grandma lived to be 106 years old. And she lived in her house most of that time. The last couple of months, she did need care facility. She got sick, but she was wonderful that whole time. So while I was taking care of her, my career changed a lot. I moved home. I wasn't really sure how to do this because teaching had been my backbone. I could teach weekend classes, night classes. I taught at universities. I taught the public. At one point in my late 30s, I did a general kind of count of how many people had been in front of me in all those different types of classes, and it was 2,000. So I would meet people sometimes and have no idea that I had spent 2 hours with them showing them how to blow glass, and I didn't like that. I like remembering people. But I didn't really know how was I going to travel for shows if I'm taking care of my grandma, and so that was a bit of a learning curve. And these are just some studio shots. So I set up a studio in my mom's basement, started taking care of my grandma, figuring out how often she needed me to be there. And as you all probably know, it was progressive. She needed, at first, just doctor's appointments, and then she needed meals, and then she needed more house cleaning, and then she needed company, and then she needed night care. So I learned that as I went. And again, my mom really couldn't help me, so I had to figure it out, which was tricky. But this is all studio shots. This is what it's like for me to be in my studio. Some more bowls. This is what my studio looks like. I'll put a pause on the emotional stuff for a second. So I have a little wet grinder that is flat and one that is a belt sander and that's soft. And then I do a lot with just hand polishing. And this was actually in my mother's basement, but this last time I took studio shots, it's a mess. So the work is very, I try to refine it. Everything is clean and elegant, but it takes a lot of mess to get there. Kilns, wet saw, and then I met the love of my life. This is Corey and his child Sydney, and we got married. So I'm staying in Syracuse, and I love it. When I first got home, I was used to a city. I was used to all of the exposure that I could get in a city, but moving home, the slowed down pace, the ability to just be outside in nature really easily. That was wonderful. And I met Corey when Sydney was about 8 years old, and now they're almost 16, which is crazy. And I'm a stepmom. But I still get to teach. So because I was in Syracuse and I had a different level of time, I was able to be invited to places for longer periods of time. So this is a demonstration I did at the GAS conference. This year, the GAS conference is in Corning. That's the big yearly conference where all the glass blowers get together and talk shop. So I was doing some demonstrations on how I get the glass so thin. That's one of the biggest questions I get from glass artists is how do I get it so thin? And I just cold work it a lot. Just take off as many layers as I think my fingers can handle. And I've been invited to teach short workshops at universities. So these are, this is Midwest somewhere, but I did take notes. There we go. I went back to Alfred. My friend is now the head of the department there, so I go every 4 or 5 years or so and just do some demonstrations and hang out with my friends. Pittsburgh Glass Center, I'll be going back there this summer. I'm teaching another one-week workshop. This is what you look like when you're in the hot tub. Very sweaty. That's summertime in the hot tub. It's exactly what you think. And then Pilchuck, also I try to go back to Pilchuck every few years. Pilchuck is the one on the West Coast. It's actually Dale Chihuly's school. He's the one who started it. And it's just an amazing place to be amongst other creatives. And I started slowing down the production of my jewelry because it was just harder to do shows, and I would still send things out to different stores. A lot of the stores that sold my work were museum stores. It was just kind of the right price point and the right level of detail. So yeah, so that was how I made a living. But now I'm working more with the patterns. So one of the things that you might be able to see is the join between the Marinis if you look really hard. And that's a fun thing for me, is looking for where's the join between the pattern. Where does it start? Where does it end? So yeah, it's very difficult. It's sort of a trick of the eye. And started working more with these sheets of pattern that I would fuse back together and then cut shapes out of. And one thing I didn't mention, when I was in high school, I had a great ceramics program in my high school, but I also did a lot of sewing. So a lot of the things that I did as a child and a young person, they all kind of came back together. And so I made sheets of pattern, and then I would cut out shapes, and then I could make whatever shapes I wanted to. And I found that I liked the shape of the half circle because it just held the chain in a nice way. So I did a lot of those. And then the other thing you have to have at a show is you have to have a variety of color. Even if you know that the blue one is going to sell every time, you can't just put out 10 blue necklaces. So, and the yellow one might sell like 1 out of every 5 shows, but it makes the rest of the colors pop. So you have to think about your show also as its own piece. So I had to kind of go back to the installation stuff that I resisted as a graduate student. Does it like to walk into this space? And then this pair of earrings is kind of a fun one. I don't know if you can tell, but they're different fused circles, and I played with the pattern a little differently in each one. So that's a fun thing with earrings, is that you can have an interplay of pattern between the two. This is the process of fusing. So I put out a whole bunch of Marini as tightly as I can onto a sheet of ceramic with a resist painted on the surface, and then heat that whole thing up. You have to squeeze that together so that you fill in the gaps. So I get all suited up, and then I have these big metal paddles, and I'll go in and squeeze them. And then once that is fused and cooled back down, then you put that on a mold. So my pottery came back into play. I was able to throw my own forms, and then slump is a lower temperature actually. Slump the form of glass into the mold, and that's really what I'm interested in right now, is creating those forms. And then cold working them again, getting off any surface resist material. In 2018, I was invited to Corning to have a residency. Residencies are magic and gold to any artist. They are just time and space to work. They fund it. You don't have to worry about anything but what you want to make in that time frame. And the one at Corning is probably the best in the world, I would say, in terms of the amount of time, space, and access to facilities that you can get. And I just pulled as much Marini as I had time. I mean, I was in there pulling glass every day, because to me that's stock for the future. And so at the end of it, they also give you the opportunity to have a professional photographer take pictures of your work. Mostly what I took pictures of was the Marini that I made. And then this is what the bundles look like in the kiln. So once I've created a pattern, cold, that's what it looks like before I pick it back up and stretch it and make a smaller, thinner, longer version of that. And they're bundled together with wire, and that wire is a special temperature resistant wire. It's a nichrome, nickel and chrome. for anyone who's wanting the technical. This is how I put patterns together. I just look at them. I put them together in different formations and decide, okay, I want this one to be more floral, or I want this one to be straight line, or what other canes do I have that I can assemble with it. And I think they're just beautiful objects on their own, and have experimented with showing just bundles, but it's a weird thing for people to want to buy, so financially it's a Also, I love the potential that is in glass. You can melt it and pull it and melt it again, and then you can change it so many times, and also over a long period of time. A lot of the canes that I pulled in graduate school, 10 years later, I could still find ways that it related to patterns that I was working on now, and I could put them back together, melt them again, and stretch them out. And that, for me, was the biggest difference between ceramics and glass. Ceramics, you have to trim that pot when it's ready to be trimmed. If you're not the dictator of your own time. But glass, I had a little bit more freedom. So I could, when I was taking care of my grandma, I could spend, a full week with her and then take a few hours and just play a little bit and get some things done. And in all honesty, for the years I was taking care of her, I really didn't do much glass work unless it was this residency or I was invited for a week or two. I just felt too much guilt. I didn't want to be in the studio playing when I felt her needing me. And as I said, my father had passed a long time ago. My brother's down in Florida. He's now taking care of my mother. But I was really her person. So she had caretakers, but I just always like, I think I need to be with her. This is another pocket art piece. I still kind of play a little bit with that. Sometimes old work resurfaces, and that seems to be happening. Just a pattern I really like. And sometimes the pocket art and the larger forms come back together. Some images of more bowls. Dragon fruit. Definitely a dragon. Color schemes that are sort of difficult are fun to play with. So this red is a technical, reactive color. It doesn't work very well with other colors. It tends to want to turn black. So this is a technical feat, and I love it. It looks like bubbles and water and sea life and all of those things. I don't have direct references. I don't always look at certain things, but if a pattern strikes me or a colorway strikes me, there was a billboard that I saw in Philadelphia once, and the color scheme was so odd that I had to write down the color scheme of it. I just thought it was, and I thought it was gorgeous, but it was unusual, and I've never seen that color formation again. So this is a color formation I like a lot. And then this is what I do now for my day job. I like to be clear about the economics of being an artist. I work as a dental technician. I was offered this job at my grandmother's funeral, I'm honest, by my brother's best friend, who is a dentist. He had been looking for a dental technician, and I have all of the skills that are necessary for it. Attention to detail, physical body, I love tiny things. So they brought me into the practice about 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago now. And I make crowns, bridges, veneers, dentures, and implant crowns, and it's wonderful because it affords me the ability to, when I go in the studio now, I don't need to make any decisions based on my finances. I don't have to make earrings for a show. I make earrings if I want to. If I don't have to make a certain color pattern because that's what sells, I make whatever color I want. So when I was in Philadelphia, I had a couple of women who took classes from me, and they were what we called weekend warriors. They would come in and they would work on the weekends. They could afford to blow glass as much as they wanted to. They could make whatever they wanted to. And we had sort of a mutual admiration for each other. I really loved that they had that ability. And they gave me a lot of respect for the grunt work that you have to go through to become an artist. And I feel now like I have the best of both worlds. I have whatever credibility I need in the art world to be where I want to be and have confidence, but I also can afford to take my kid to Maine for a week, you know, if I want to, or, you know, make sure that she's set up for college and that kind of thing. So I'm really very grateful for my day job, and I really enjoy it. It sort of ticks all my boxes. So I have a couple of pictures of that. That's a denture being put together. So we do 3D printing. I also mill out of zirconia, or there's actually a glass substance called Emax. I do a lot of color matching for people's crowns. So if somebody has a mismatched front tooth, then I go in and I actually have a special tooth paint that I will match the color, and then I fire that, and we put it in, and I'm able to be successful most of the time, which is one of the hardest things in dentistry. That's what the dentists tell me anyway. Anytime I haven't nailed it, they're like, "This is the hardest thing. It's okay." But yeah, I'm able to do that pretty well at this point. But I am still making glass. So this is towards the end of my lecture, but it's a nice balance at this point. And then this is my family. This is my husband, my child, and they're wonderful. So I like to end with them. Sorry for all the tears. I didn't expect that. It's a weird thing to talk about your life and progression, and I haven't done it in a while. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm happy to answer any questions. Obviously, if you'd like work, it's available, but no pressure at all. It's just don't make me. So.
Anyone have a question?
Yes.
I'm gonna get the mic. I don't think I need the mic. I noticed,
you don't need the mic.
I noticed when we looked at the pictures of the variety of studios, that there was always either a ladder or pieces of wood. There was things that were like spacings on the floor. What is that about?
That's a good detail. So when I pull the glass, it's molten hot from the touch from one pipe to another. And as I'm pulling it, it cools, especially the smaller parts, they cool faster. But they don't cool quite enough so that when they touch the ground, because once we've stretched it, it's got to go down so that I can break it off the pipes. But if I put it on the ground and it's too cold, and most of those are, what's the word? Concrete, yes. So most of the ground is concrete in a glass studio, and it would chill the glass and break it. So the wood is a shield for the heat. But yes, I always have ladders, but most glass blowers don't. They usually work at the bench. So when I'm working in a group studio, I have to sort of confer with other people who are working in other benches and say, please don't step on my cane. Because you have to look down and see that it's there. But yeah, great question. Yes.
So, Karen Lamont, who does Lost Wax,
Yes.
casting,
Yeah.
within youth this past year. And
She's amazing.
yes,
That's a huge get.
yes. We were very fortunate.
Yeah.
She was at Munson, and she told a story about going to Prague to do her casting,
Mm-hmm.
and she made reference. Because they had this huge kiln there of some sort,
Yeah.
and the rumor was that Corning is installing a similar size.
Yes.
Can you verify?
Yes, I can verify. It's partly for her. So again, like, she's big. She's, in my opinion, one of the two most famous glass casters in the world right now. And a lot of that, she's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know her personally, and I have no skin in the game. So, but if you can look us up.
She's lovely.
But yes, so Corning, they did a renovation a couple of years ago. Another reason why I wasn't working as much was that Corning was going through this huge renovation, and that was really my only local access. But Richard Whiteley, he's from Australia. He's a big name there. He's another glass caster. They got him to come in and help design this new glass casting studio. And if you've watched glass blowing before, you know what those tanks look like. This tank looks like those, but it has like a spout in the front, and they have a lift that picks it up and pours into the mold. It's amazing. I wish I had a video of it. But if you go on Corning's website, they'll have some images of it because it was very expensive to put in. But there really was nowhere in America where you could do large-scale casting like that. A lot of casting had been done with ladles. So you take a big ladle, a big metal ladle, and scoop into the tank and pour into your mold. But there's some cooling time and some other technical things that make that messy. This is a much cleaner process. And Corning also, so their residency program, they used to take, I think it was 8 artists a year, 2 at a time. And because they've expanded their facilities and also expanded what those facilities are, I think it's year-round now, and I think it's 6 artists. So we're going to get a lot more glass artists coming through New York. So yeah, that's, so I can verify, yes, that is there, and it's worth seeing. Yes?
I had the experience of going down to Corning just as, to see the museum, but I got to pull my own glass. It is so much fun, and I have a flower that I made in about 5 minutes that's not good. But I leave it in my hutch because it's a memory of a wonderful experience.
Yeah. Yeah, glass, I mean, specifically holds memory because it freezes so quickly. So when Sydney was this age, when she was small, I had that residency at Corning, and I brought Corey and Sydney in, and they got to make some stuff. And Sydney's been begging ever since. I'm like, it's quite expensive, so we'll see. But yeah, it is a wonderful material for holding memory. So I recommend really if it's a great thing to do if you have family visiting and you want something to do for the day. I know it's a bit of a hike. The town is so cute too. I don't need to be just like putting Corning for it, but I love it. It's a wonderful place. Yeah. The different things are different PPE. So one of the ways you protect yourself from getting burned is experience. So I got burned the very first time I gathered, quite badly. And one of the things that's surprising about the heat is actually when you open the furnace door and you go in to gather, that blast of heat, your skin is not expecting. It's not a level of heat that you've experienced before. And I don't usually speak that generally of like youth, but yes, youth. Like it's incredibly hot. It's 2,000 degrees of heat, and you're about 4 feet from it. So you have to learn how to angle your body. And if you watch glass blowers, it looks like they're dancing. It's choreography. That's experience of just knowing where to stand, where it's safe, where it's not hot, what to touch, what you can't touch, where you need to put things so that it's safe. When I teach classes, I am very clear about all of those things, and we all, community-wise, reiterate the same thing. So all of my friends who teach, we all talk about the same things. When it comes to breathing glass dust, respirators and ventilation, and really just low exposure as much as possible, because that stuff it's quite bad. Ceramics, it's also bad. Both those materials, and one of the things that I work at my practice now is making sure that we're up to code for all of that stuff, because long term, those things build up in your lungs. So, and I've seen the end, so I want to make sure that I'm as comfortable and healthy as possible for the whole duration. So, yeah. And also protective clothing too.
You mentioned suiting up. What
Yeah.
did that entail?
Mostly Kevlar. So a lot of the same things that firemen will wear, but maybe like thinner versions. So a lot of times if you're working at a bench and your arm is really close to the glass, you'll wear it like a Kevlar sleeve. Also your assistant will shield you with a wooden paddle. And like if I'm suiting up for my kiln, I wear a helmet. I wear like a welder's helmet and a full welder's jacket. And UGG gloves. UGG gloves are great. They actually protect you from a lot more heat than they say they do. So I use UGG gloves a lot. Or I have special hand tools that keep me just further from the glass that so I feel comfortable. A lot of the distraction when you're new at glass is the heat. And that is what makes it so difficult, is you're constantly thinking about your body safety, and also the glass is freezing as you're doing things, as you might remember from your flower. So yeah, the suiting up is mostly Kevlar, but then also similar to, yeah.
So the raw ingredients, is it sand or what are the colors?
So sand is one of the main ingredients, but if you just try to melt regular sand, that's about 4,000 degrees. So they add some things to it to lower the melting point. Potash, I think, is one thing. And then they also extract. So if you just melt sand, you would get whatever minerals are in the sand, and that makes colors. So colors come from minerals. So it actually took a long time for them to figure out how to make clear glass. In one of the places that glass was first used was Egypt, and they added more color in to sort of disguise the natural color. But as they were able to purify and get the glass cleaner and cleaner, then they were able to get it clear and then add those minerals back in. So all of the glass colors that I use, they come from a factory. I don't mix those. It's pretty corrosive to do that. If you, back to the PPE stuff, if you're going to do that, you need special ventilation, and there was some controversy in Portland maybe 10 years ago because they were making some reds that they thought were contaminating the water supply, and those reds were gorgeous, but I guess probably it was they were pretty corrosive. Cadmium and gold also makes red. Cobalt comes from blue, or blue and cobalt. Manganese makes purple, but different variations or different mixtures of those minerals will make different tones of color. And one of the things that is most fun for me community-wise is tricking the glass blowers. Like if I have a glass blower friend who is really good at making goblets or castings or other kinds of things, a lot of times they'll look at my pattern, they don't know where I started. They don't know how I got there, or don't know what color that is because I pulled it so thin or layered it with so many things and the light bounces through. So yeah, that's one of those non-monetary satisfying things.
So,
yeah.
do you know some of the indigenous glass blowers? I think what is his name?
Yeah, Preston Singletary. I don't know him personally. I haven't had the opportunity, but yeah, his work's amazing. He and Dan are good friends, so it's a web. You know, we all kind of know each other. I don't know that they know me. I make no projection on that, but yes, I'm very familiar with his work. A lot of the glass artists that are indigenous are in Seattle because they kind of support each other. So you'll notice that glass has hubs. It'll have certain zones, and people kind of offshoot from there. And I was lucky enough to be near Corning and get that opportunity as well. But a lot of the indigenous people around here have not started to expose themselves to that material. It was just expensive and hard to break into. But Dan had a residency in Corning a couple of years ago, and he brought some tribal family relations to his talk. And so I'm hoping that will start more, because it's just a wonderful creative expression. So.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
I thought I knew what Penny did. I think now I really know what she does. So, at this time, I would like a motion to adjourn. Marge Palmer. Second. Can you see? Kathy Owens. All in favor? Meeting is adjourned. Penny has some things for you to either purchase or look at, but please be careful.